Welcome to the Fleet Geeks podcast. We're here to help develop fleet and transport professionals. Do you want to progress and develop your skills and knowledge? We promise to bring lively conversation and debate around interesting issues and keep you bang up to date with changes in our awesome industry. The Fleet Geeks are a community of professionals, and if you enjoy the podcast, why not join the discussion for free in the Fleet Geek community over on Facebook.
Red light's rolling.
On the podcast again. Here we go. How we doing, Pete? All right?
I'm knackered, mate.
Yeah. Soon be Christmas.
It will soon be.
We can't say that.
That's going to age this podcast.
That's going to age the podcast, isn't it? Yeah.
So this is coming out in January.
Actually, I think probably this one ought to go out. I think this one ought to go out fairly soon, doesn't it? Because I've said soon be Christmas. Probably people thinking, soon be Christmas next year.
Yeah. Well, it will. So we'll do it a bit tongue-in-cheek. The reason I say that is because Harry, who edits the podcast, is on holiday. I think he's in holiday in like Zimbabwe or Zambia or somewhere pretty cool and hot.
Weird.
He's away somewhere hot until Christmas.
Oh, wow.
He'll be editing this early January. So it'll soon be Christmas in 12 months' time.
There we go. We got that, didn't we? But in context, I suppose, about what we're going to talk about, and I haven't seen it doing the rounds so much recently. So, does everybody remember, or does anybody remember Network Rail and a recent advert? Well, advert, is that the right word? I don't think that's the right word, is it?
Well, it was meant to be, really. It was like an educational video from Network Rail, wasn't it? That was absolutely horrific. Yeah. I think I've still got PTSD from watching it. No, I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't say that.
Well, I mean, it was bad though, wasn't it? But let's caveat this by saying anybody who does anything in the interest of road safety should be applauded to a degree, but...
Yeah, so I think we. I don't know. I don't really know sort of what to say really. Apart from I do apologise, by the way, for making light of the condition of PTSD as a sufferer. It's probably something I shouldn't make light of, but nonetheless, I think the Network Rail ad was pretty horrific. I shared it on LinkedIn, and it had no positive feedback for me on LinkedIn. Everyone tended to agree with the points that I made. But interestingly, on YouTube, I did look at the comments on the YouTube video.
Oh, yeah.
And they were largely very positive. I don't know if Network Rail has bunged some brown envelopes somewhere to get some positive feedback. But essentially, the whole... If you haven't watched it, go away and watch it and re-listen to the podcast. It is there, Network Rail bridge strikes video, to be really specific. And it's kind of like, so how do we describe the video? It's about 7 minutes long, I think, which is a bit long. I think it's 7 minutes long. I'm just going to fact check that whilst we're talking.
Yeah, I'm going to put some. Now I'm going to split the viewers here because I'm going to go back in time to my childhood and the public information film. So for those of you who are not aware of this advert or this production from Network Rail, I remember back in the 70s public information films, and it was kind of like they were almost. Even then, even in the context of the 70s, they were very, very amateurish and childlike. And I think I certainly remember one I can't remember what it was about now, but Charlie says, don't go with strangers, which is a great message, of course, and a very important message. But it was just done in such a sort of comedic fashion. But of course, it was aimed at children. As were most of the public information. I remember, was it Nutty Bumpkins, the squirrel, helping us cross the road? As children, showing us how to cross the road in a public information film. But this was this was along the same sort of vein as being very childish and very amateurish, but aimed at fully grown and responsible and intelligent lorry drivers. So, it was almost done. I mean, maybe that was the intention. I don't know. Maybe that was the intention of the filmmaker or the person that put this together. That what it was to do it in a sort of 1970s public information film. I don't think it was, though. I'm trying to be kind to them. I don't think it was. But Pete's just we're not. Are we going to put? No, I don't think we can. We play an excerpt?
No, we can't. But I am. I don't think I can find it.
Maybe they've pulled it.
Which makes it very interesting if they have pulled it, Mike. I'm just having you keep talking a minute, and I'm just keeping going.
I would have thought if it's not straight away sort of there, it's going to have been pulled from their platforms.
I've just searched YouTube for Network Rail bridge strike video, and all I can find is like these. No, is there Wise Up, Size Up? It's called Wise Up, Size Up.
Yeah,
I'm just having a look on YouTube. It is still there. 2.6 thousand views 1 month ago. It does last for it's 1 minute 55. It just felt like 7.
It felt like
7 minutes.
7 minutes of cringe. But so just see if you can describe what is so strange about it. I've sort of set the scene that it's very 1970s public information film aimed at children crossing the road and stuff, which is of course a very important subject, but
yeah,
what is it that's
it looks like
galling?
Yeah. So it reminds me of like a Wacky Racers type. Yeah. It's like a 2D cartoon where it could be Peppa Pig. It literally could be Peppa Pig or something, and it actually has a truck digging a hole underneath the road.
Yes, of course, that happens every day, doesn't it? We quite often see that on the roads.
And it talks about that. So the thing, interestingly, it's even been written that the issue that it raises is that the drivers haven't written down what their height is. It doesn't say that they know the measurement of their height. It's that they haven't written it down, which I thought was quite interesting. But yeah, so as I watch it now, they've just javelined a double-decker bus over the top of a bridge.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And you've got Wilson's and Sons removals now that's digging a hole under the bridge
to get under. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the message, of course, is that bridge strikes are still a big problem. They're on the increase. We know that traffic commissioners take a very dim view. Well, I mean, society takes a very dim view of lorries or even buses hitting railway bridges. I don't think nobody's daft enough to realise that the consequences of a bridge coming down and a train coming off of a bridge. I mean, the consequences are, don't bear thinking about, do they really? So the message is definitely there, but it's just the way that it's communicated, I think, is it's just a shock, isn't it?
Yeah, I think how did it happen? I think I think of this like group think, which sometimes happens in our industry around, particularly in like. I think when we make videos and when we make promotional materials in what I class as like quite a technical industry, there's a chance of stuff getting dumbed down for people. Yeah. I think because it gets created by people who don't really understand the language and the terminology. They don't necessarily really understand somewhere in this the brief of humour and amusing got lost in translation.
Yeah, definitely.
I think with the video creation or the what are they called, animators. Yeah, and the animators, and it just totally lost all levels of what it was. So clearly the brief wasn't clear enough, which makes me think, do we understand, when the brief's not clear enough, does it mean that we don't understand the problem well enough?
I think you've hit the nail so firmly on the head there, Pete, that we don't understand the problem well enough. And the other side of the coin, when we we refer to this all the time now, the court of Facebook or the court of Twitter, social media, when a lorry hits a bridge, even professional drivers will all just stand around, point at the driver and say, what an idiot. And we'll laugh and we'll guffaw and we'll move on to the next one. And then the next time it happens, which is seemingly statistically only a few days later, we'll just stand and point at the driver and say, oh, what an idiot. Whereas what we're actually not doing is solving the problem at all. And we can try, the other way of, I'm a big believer in not trying to punish people into compliance. We just think that by putting big fines out there and by the big bad traffic commissioner is going to come and take your HGV license away from you. That's not working. That approach isn't working. So I guess they've tried a different approach, but it's just not come across very well, is it? We've got a problem. And this is not the way to solve it.
Hi, it's Pete from Flagship Partners. We're really proud to sponsor the Fleet Geeks podcast. Flagship Partners offer a range of consultancy and training services to ensure that our customers remain compliant and have the best possible knowledge to be able to fulfill their work. If you're interested in support with any of our safety, HR or compliance services, or you want to train to be a transport manager or need driver CPC training, give us a call today.
But then again, neither is trying to punish people into it.
Yeah, so interestingly, I shared an article from raeladvent.co.uk into my health and safety network group, who are largely non-fleet professionals. And they are very much of, their ethos is around people don't come to work to do stupid things. The environment creates stupid things.
The environment
there's no such thing. Essentially, there's no such thing as an unresourceful person, just an unresourceful state. So they've got an interesting point of view on this stuff. So I shared this video, article where the driver had been fined and given a 6-month driving ban for hitting a low bridge in his Mercedes Actros, and one of the colleagues in there said, whatever happened to the hanging chains that used to pre-warn a driver of a low bridge approaching? We put all our drivers through FORS training for low bridge strikes, but you see them roll their eyes when it's that subject again. With all the recorded bridge strike data, surely there is enough data available to get a better insight into why it's still happening. Is it new drivers? Is it agency drivers? Is it drivers using Google Maps, car sat-navs rather than more expensive truck versions? Or do traffic planners have a part to play?
I think it's all of those.
If you were to apply Sam Neal, who's one of our health and safety colleagues, control the risk method. So Sam Neal, who's one of my colleagues in the health and safety network, talks about controlling the risk rather than controlling the process, which we're very guilty of doing, I think, in the sector, where we control the process and not the actual risk. So control the risk method. Who is tasked with controlling the risk here? Is it just left to the driver, or should the bridge owner be doing more if it's a foreseeable risk? Like I said earlier, where are the early warning chains? So, back on Network Rail, and other bridge owners are available.
They own the bridges, and they don't want... they believe that the problem is not theirs, it's the people who are hitting the bridges. But there
is a foreseeable risk involved with the bridge.
Absolutely.
And is there enough done with the foreseeable risk? Are we controlling the risk, or are we controlling the process? And essentially, old thinking is not solving the problem. Or what's the old Einstein
If you
quote?
always do something like this, you'll get the same result.
If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got.
We all stand around, guffaw at the driver, say he's an idiot or she's an idiot. Tell the advice to the operator is sack the driver. The traffic commissioner says, we're going to give them a 48-day ban from, big fines, and it's still not solving the problem.
And there's people out there going, you want a bridge strike toolbox talk, and you want a bridge strike policy, and you want this and you want that, and it's largely, it's largely like the statistics aren't changing.
No.
Regardless of the communication.
Exactly.
So the message isn't hitting home.
And that cartoon doesn't really get it, does it? It doesn't really do it.
No.
You can applaud people for trying maybe a different approach, and we shouldn't ever be shy of trying something slightly different, but I don't think that's going to resonate well. It hasn't resonated well in the industry. As you say, LinkedIn's slightly different maybe from YouTube, but it certainly hasn't resonated. I certainly wouldn't show that to a driver in a driver CPC.
No, and ultimately that is the thing, isn't it? So, who is going to share these resources? And when the DVSA create a video, or when Network Rail create a video, or the traffic commissioners create a document, they're relying on the industry professionals to share that information with people in the industry. Now, ultimately, at some point, potentially, we could have been consulted to actually give some advice on what we thought would be useful. And like I say, I wouldn't be using that video. I wouldn't be using that video at all. And like you say, I'm sure you won't be either.
No, absolutely not.
But what do we understand about bridge strike? I think I'd just go back to that. What do we know about bridge strikes, and do we understand? We could, with the data we have, I feel like we could have done a much more in-depth study into what is causing the bridge strikes.
Yes.
What is it? What type of vehicle is it? What driving experience? What are the common factors?
Again, I mean, the interesting fact there is if a driver hits a bridge, they're going to be in a whole heap of trouble, and that trouble may involve a criminal prosecution. So therefore, that's already skewed our investigation of why that's happened. I always hark back to the airline industry. The airline industry has a far better understanding of why aeroplanes keep falling out of the sky, because there is a completely different approach, a completely different ethos in terms of safety. Our first view as a driver and an operator, if a vehicle hits a bridge, our first thoughts go towards how do we damage limitation from the driver's perspective, from the operator's perspective. It's all about damage limitation. It's not about trying to understand why it happened. I think that's probably the crux of this matter. We're quite happy to just stand around and point at the driver and say, what an idiot driver, let's fine them a lot more money, that will stop it happening in the future. And of course it hasn't.
Absolutely. I'm just looking at the post now that I posted on LinkedIn, and one of my esteemed colleagues from the Silk Logistics and Safety Forum, Glenn, has made a comment on there. Thanks for raising a few things Network Rail have got wrong here. The main one being the lack of engagement with the freight sector's communication and training community. Bridge strikes are a serious issue, and the video lacks any serious learning points, which it doesn't. There's no actual learning points from the video. The driver's lapse of judgment, and the actual bridge strike is the final hole in the Swiss cheese, which is interesting. So there's no talk there about the Swiss cheese model, which is something you learn in safety around. Essentially, there will always be a risk that sort of slips through a gap in your system, but ultimately, if you have multiple safety systems, then all of a sudden, the challenge gets blocked. Scheduling, routing, and method of navigation will help get to the root cause, and we certainly won't be using this in toolbox talks. I made a comment about properly measuring height and adjusting the indicator sign in the cab too. And then the question back, is this actually a causal factor identified in bridge strike investigations? Campaigns like this deal with the symptom and not the cause. Really, we need to have a study which is understanding causal factors of bridge strikes.
Absolutely. Causal factors, it's a massive thing in the airline industry. It's never one cause, it's always several causal factors, and we're not addressing any of those. We're just looking at the end result, which is a lorry wedged under a bridge. We've got to come a long way in the industry to get there, haven't we? But
and that video is just addressing comedy ways of preventing high vehicles from hitting bridges.
The Victorians, they're to blame. Although the Victorians are amazing people, they gave us some brilliant engineering. It's just they didn't build the bridges quite right, did they?
They probably weren't expecting us to have 4 metre high vehicles, were they?
Although, having said that, and this is for another podcast completely, the reason why we have operator licensing today is due to rail operating companies and railway owners at the time being fearful of the logistics by road sector. But that's for a different day. That's for another day. So maybe they built their bridges knowing full well that it would cause us a problem in years to come. I don't think so, but you never know. They were clever old people, these Victorians.
Fantastic. And do you know what? We've made a 20-minute podcast out of a 2-minute video.
Out of a 2-minute video. There we go, yeah.
Anyway, we'll see you all on the next one.
See you on the next one.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please share with your friends and colleagues too. Join us for free on Facebook with the Fleet Geeks community for transport and fleet managers. Fleet Geeks offers ongoing professional development, networking and mentoring too. So get in touch with me, Pete Rushmer, on any social media platform to find out more.